So you know that moment where you realize, oh, I'm not in Nigeria anymore. Yeah, I've had a few of those. In this video, I'll be sharing the biggest culture shocks I experienced in the UK and how I eventually adapted. Some left me laughing out loud, some left me confused, and some just humbled me. I believe I learned through grace, trial and error, and Google searches at 2 a.m. in the morning. Let's get into today's video. Welcome to Life with Aminaho. On this channel, we talk about life as an immigrant in the UK, how to live, how to thrive, and just succeed here as settlers, as immigrants in the UK. Let's get into the first culture shock. Now, this one sounds like a cliche. Everybody talks about it, but I feel like until you experience it, you don't really know. Is the British weather. British weather is rude. And when I say rude, I live in Scotland. So if ruder is a word, I would say Scottish weather is ruder. I know it's not a word. So yeah, the weather is rude, guys. You live in the house. I remember one day when I first came into the UK, I came to the UK with these sandals and this flowing cultural gown that I wanted to wear because I came in spring and it was sunny. It was sunny, the sun was shining. Back home, if the sun's shining and you go out, you feel the sun on your skin, right? You might even need an umbrella because of how hot it is. But here, the sun is so deceitful. The sun is shining, but there is absolutely no heat. It's like when you turn on, it's like when you open your fridge or your freezer that has light in it. There's light, but the light in it doesn't give any heat. Everywhere is just cold. That was it. So I wore my sandals and my gown and came out, and oh my god, I had to run back home before I would die. You see those memes online where people have jackets on at the same time they've got shoes, and then they've got like slippers up on foot and boots on the other foot. They've got like t-shirt on one hand, and then winter jacket on the other hand, and half of the head is covered with scarf and things like that, and nose mask, while the other half is left bare and waiting for the sun. That is how to survive in the UK. You cannot go anywhere without an umbrella. I learned that the hard way. I learned that from being beaten by the rain several times. So I'll come out, Google, I'll look at the weather forecast. It's not supposed to rain, right? You go out, it's sunny, it's shining, and lo and behold, everywhere turns dark, and it starts. The wind one day, oh my god, caught me off guard. The wind sometimes can be so strong. They have names for their wind. Sometimes they'll say red or yellow weather alert for wind, and the wind will be like 30 miles per hour, 50, 60. And sometimes I feel like some of the winds can sweep me away, and I'm not particularly small, I don't think. Yes, the weather can be very, very rude, so it takes some getting used to. No matter how much we say it, how much people say it, you just cannot say it enough. You can't trust the sun. 1 minute is raining, it can rain, snow, the sun will shine on exactly the same day within like 10 minutes of themselves. In like 10 minutes, you can experience all the extremes at the same time. The British weather is rude. So how did I adapt, right? So I noticed after a while in the UK, I wasn't getting sun exposure. If you're from my part of the world, the part of the world that is more sunny or tropical, you need vitamin D supplementation. So layering, I layer a lot. I had to learn how to layer. Like the weather can get so cold that you can't just go out the way you go out at home with just a t-shirt and a jacket on and a winter coat. No, sometimes I have like 5-6 layers on. When I wear my uniform at work, I have like 3 layers underneath, and then my uniform on top, and then my company jacket, the NHS jacket, and then the winter jacket, and then sometimes you have to put a scarf and all of that. Yeah, so layers. Weather forecast. We are best friends. I know what the weather is now, tomorrow, next tomorrow, and how it's going to change. So I know how to plan myself. That is how I adapted. The second culture shock I got in the UK is when I started working, I discovered that here, tea can be a love language. The culture loves tea. British people love tea. I don't know what the fascination with tea is. And I remember then I would be in the office and everybody wants, do you fancy a cup or do you want a cup of tea, Faith? Do you take sugar in your tea? And they'll make tea for everybody. And I was just wondering, like, what is this fascination with Lipton? Like, I don't understand. Well, look at me now. If you check my cupboard, I have like 4 or 5. I think I have at least 5 different teas, different brands of tea now. And I enjoy tea, especially herbal tea. So I've sort of learned that, and I actually enjoy that part of the British culture. And I'll credit that to my colleagues at work when I started working. I was working before where I'm working now. So yeah, if you are offered tea and you decline, it's rude. If you're making tea for yourself, you offer to make for your colleagues, right? Otherwise, I feel like you're being rude because everybody does it. So if you don't do it, I feel like I'm being rude. I don't know if that's how they feel about it, but that's how I feel. I'm not talking about hot chocolate, guys. I'm talking about Lipton, like tea. Some people take with sugar, some people don't. So yeah, think about it. So this one is, in a way, was not, will I say, it was culture shock for me. But at the same time, it wasn't, because back in Nigeria, you say sorry for everything. And this is a British thing. This is very much a British thing. You say sorry for existing. You say sorry for bumping into somebody. You say sorry because the person bumped into you. You say sorry because you want to ask a question. You say sorry. You say sorry for everything. And then sometimes you say sorry and they'll be like, oh my God, you don't have to be sorry. Why are you sorry? You haven't done anything wrong. And they also say sorry to you. So it becomes confusing. So you're practically just sorry for everything, guys. That's another one. It's not, we do that back home as well, but here I feel like it's done a lot more. You meet somebody on the road, there's this awkward, who's going to let me do this, who's going to, yeah. You say sorry. You say sorry, say sorry, they say sorry. And everybody's just sorry and everybody's just going, yeah. The biggest, for me, the biggest culture shock for me in the UK is that everybody's polite, but everybody's not warm. Everybody's not nice, but everybody's polite. See, back home, this is something I actually sort of missed back home, right? When somebody's upset with you, you would know, because yeah, you see from the person's expression and the way the person will just probably not even respond to your greeting. You say good morning and the person will say what's good about the morning, or the person just not respond to you. So you know that this person has an issue. So you go speak with the person to know, like, how do you resolve? Yeah. Here it's not like that. Like, there's this passive aggressive niceness that is the culture here. You cannot be plain. I don't know how else to explain it. It was just such a massive shock for me. You're passing on the road, everybody's smiling. You think, oh my God, these people are so nice, but they're smiling like I've had very funny experiences where I've even had like some racist comments come with a smile. Like somebody would say, oh my God, you're black. I don't want a black person attending to me. And the person is saying it with a smile. Can I get a white person? So I've never experienced that kind of, that I've never experienced it in my life. I think for me, that is the biggest culture shock. Everybody's so polite, but not everybody's warm. Not everybody's nice. And everybody can be very, 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 very rude, very insulting, very condescending, but they are polite about it. So you can bring up an idea, or you can dress and come out and tell you that's an interesting choice of shoe. So that's, your hair is interesting. They are trying to tell you your hair is crap, right? Or your outfit is just not it. Like, well, sometimes it puts you at ease, yeah. But some other times it takes you by surprise at the way people act and turn around, especially if you go to the shop or places like that. Everybody's polite in the UK. You have to also learn to be polite, which is a culture shock for me, because back where I come from, we believe in saying things the way it is. If you offend me, I'll come to you and say, oh, you offended me. This thing you said, I absolutely don't agree with it. Don't talk to me like that, you know. But if you say that to some people, you say that the Nigerian way here, you'll be termed aggressive, right? Because you did not say it in a polite way. So you have to go politely and talk to people politely. If you're offended, you have to respond politely, right? Those that are offending, you're also offending you in a polite manner. So there is a politeness culture here that sometimes is good, sometimes it takes some getting used to. For me, I feel like I've gotten used to it, because now I'm able to better recognize when somebody doesn't agree with me. If you're not used to it, it can be confusing. But yeah, that for me, I believe, is the biggest one. It's the biggest culture shock for me. Yeah. So how did I learn? How did I adapt? I started better, like I started listening better. I started observing body language. I started observing how people react and act afterwards. I started observing the words, taking note of the words that people use and what they say. For example, if somebody says interested, not interested, I'm going to send this to somebody that's also, yeah, we got a comment like that on our channel where somebody said, I'm going to send this to some interesting groups. So I immediately knew the person meant something negative, but some people were thinking, yeah, they wanted to send it to groups that were interested. And I was saying, no, there's a difference between interested and interested. So things like that. And you have to learn, adapt, and be polite as well. It's very, very important. You blend in faster if you're polite, if you have basic manners here. The way you speak to people matters. It matters here. It matters more than it matters back home. Because back home, everybody sort of looks at the intention behind what you're saying. Here, they look at the words that you speak. So if you say, for example, I know someone that lost a job, or I heard of someone that lost a job because they scolded her for doing something wrong, and she, being Nigerian, started by saying, oh, I'm so sorry, for peace to reign. Even though she knew she didn't do it, she was like, oh, I'm so sorry, and she got sacked because I'm so sorry is a declaration of guilt, right? You can't be sorry for something you didn't do. It's not reasonable, it's not logical, right? It's not normal, it's not proper. So yeah, things like that. Now, this word, if you live in Scotland, or you've ever spoken with a Scottish, I think also some parts of England, if you've ever spoken to a Scottish person, you would relate. It's the accent. The accent is very humbling in the UK. I've been speaking English all my life. I believe I speak English. I believe I understand English until I came to Scotland. And I remember one day at work, you can understand a lot of people pretty easily, to be fair. And this experience that I want to talk about is like one of the very few, right? Because after some time, I just discovered it's like your ears sort of open magically and you understand people better. But if you're just coming in for the first time, it can take you some getting used to. So we had someone come to the door, and I was the one to answer the door. And the person was just asking for very simple information, but it took, I'm not exaggerating, it took at least 5 minutes of me standing there to say, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Can you come again? Because for the life of me, he was speaking English, but I understood absolutely nothing about what he was saying. I could hear bits and parts of what sounded like words, but I could not pick out a single word. So I was so thankful that one of my colleagues just saw me standing there. I was wondering what's going on and came and just hearing person speak for once, but just said, oh no, he just wants to get in here. I was like, oh, okay. I'm so sorry. I had to apologize. I'm so sorry. I can't understand. And it was just, a laughing moment for all of us. And he was like, no, don't worry. But at the same time, I felt like the ground should open up and swallow me, because everybody's speaking English, but everybody is not speaking English, right? Everybody, and there's specific words, right? For example, the first time I came, when somebody says something like, I know Ken, I'm like, you are not Ken. Like, who is Ken? Is it Kenneth Okonkwo? Which Kenneth is? I don't understand. I do not know the person just meant. I don't understand. I don't know. If somebody says, for example, do you want a wee copper? And I'm like, we. I can understand we. And we, where I come from, is like to go urinate. So no, I don't want to urinate. I didn't know that was the word for small. Like, do you want a small cup of tea? That's what the person was offering. The person was being polite. And, you should have seen the expression on my face. Like, no, like, why wouldn't you be asking me if I want to go pee? So yeah, the accents can be humbling. Very much so. So part of how I believe that you can adapt to this is to just be humble. Just be willing to laugh at yourself sometimes. Don't take everything too seriously and ask questions. You will not believe the number of times I have misheard things. I had to ask questions. I had to ask. I'm somebody that is not afraid of asking. So if I don't understand what you're saying, I would ask. If I don't understand what you're asking me to do, I would ask. And my reason for asking is so I can understand and do better. I don't want to go make mistakes and then come back and make a fool of myself, right? Part of what my parents taught me is that if you don't know something, you can only be ignorant once, right? About a thing. So if I don't know how to use a phone, for example, I can only be ignorant about using that phone at a particular point in my life. So by the time I learn it for the rest of my life, I'm fluent. I know how to use it. I'm proficient, right, in using that stuff. But if I'm forming, I know, or if I don't want people to feel, I don't want to be embarrassed. I don't want anybody to look at me like I don't know what I'm doing. I will not learn fast. So I'll better learn. And if you laugh at me that don't know for wanting to know, then it shows or it tells me that you're not a very intelligent person. Because an intelligent person will laugh at somebody that is trying to learn. So yeah, I feel like that mentality really helped me to understand and to assimilate better. Another culture shock is that in the UK, everything is by appointment. You do not understand how serious this is, right? Every single thing you can think of is by appointment. You want to make your nails, right? You want to go to the salon to make your nails. You cannot just go to the salon to make your nails. You've got to make an appointment. You want to go make your hair, wash your hair or something. You cannot just do that. You're looking for someone to help amend your outfit. You can't just do that. You've got to book an appointment. You need a plumber to come to the house, right? You've got to make an appointment. You want to learn how to drive. You can't just go to the driving school. You have to make an appointment. You want to go to the hospital. Oh, this one is the most difficult to understand. Although now I understand it better. But for me in the beginning, I couldn't understand it because before you pay for a visa to come to the UK, you have to pay what is called the IHS surcharge, which is like money for you to be able to access the NHS. So you pay thousands of pounds to be able to access the NHS, and then you come to the UK, and while you're working, you also have to pay what they call NI, national insurance, which sort of still covers the NHS and things like that. So you're paying double, right? And then you're paying tax. So you've paid all of this as an immigrant, as somebody that has not settled yet. And then you need a GP appointment. And sometimes you'll be given appointments that are 3 months, 6 months in the future. And I've been told once I wanted a scan, and they told me a routine scan of that nature. The appointment is 12 months. So I will have to wait for a year. And they will give you a particular time. Sometimes they can give you 20 minutes, 10 o'clock to 10:20. If you miss your time, you've missed your time. That's it. You have to make another appointment. You cannot be late. There's no African time. There's no, oh, I'm so sorry. My car broke down. I was stuck in traffic. I have to take my child to the hospital. It doesn't matter. You have to keep to the time of the appointment that you've been given. The last culture shock that I'm going to talk about today on today's video is that sometimes, or in the beginning for me, the British food can be, well, polite. The British people, especially where I am, are in love with Irish potatoes. I feel like potatoes go with everything. So the first job I had, I worked in a place where I saw people cooking, right? I saw people cooking for other people. And I was very excited to learn and to see, because I'm a foodie, so I love to experience new cuisine and see if anything I love, I would love to learn how to make so I can eat at home. And imagine my surprise sometimes. Some things will smell so good and you taste it, and there's no spice, there's no seasoning. They absolutely don't use pepper. I think my greatest or my worst nightmare almost came to pass one day. I made Nigerian stew, right, with rice. And I went, oh, was it jollof rice? No, it was Nigerian stew with rice. And I got to work and my colleague said it tasted so nice. And they asked and I asked them, oh, do you want to taste it? And the person was like, yeah. And the person asked, is it spicy? And in my head, I'm not from the part of Nigeria that eats a lot of spices, right? So no, it's not. It's not spicy to me. Oh my God, I can laugh about it now because the person eventually was fine. But God, it was a nightmare because food was so hot for him, so spicy, and I felt so bad. I felt so bad. I felt like, I needed to take it to the hospital, take them to the hospital or something, because I gave them my rice and I don't eat pepper. Like, I say this back home, everybody that knows me, that I don't like pepper. I put it in the food so I can perceive it, and so I can taste it a little, right? But not too much. I'm not the part of Nigeria that loves a lot of pepper. So I was very, 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 very surprised, very taken aback. And then when I started tasting like British food, I started eating British food, I started getting that sense. I've never tasted any sort of spice in anything British I've eaten. Not even the chicken tikka masala that I've eaten here. Just absolutely no, no. I don't use, a lot of the time they hardly use bouillon cubes to cook. Sometimes they do, but they hardly do. Like, seasoning is the bane of our existence back home, and here is not. So it just takes some getting used to. But I can actually see now that I think my tongue has adapted, because British food is beginning to grow on me. Not all of them, but some of them, yes. I'm particularly in love with something the Scottish calls curly, which is like stuffing made from oatmeal, and it tastes like peanut to me, like granite, where we come from, like blended or grinded granite. That they add spices or whatever they add to it. So I really love that. So that's one thing I can say yes. Anywhere I'm going, if there is like a roast or something with stuffing, I would want to try it. Or there are mince and tarties. If it's roasted tarties, which is potatoes, I would try it. If it's blended, if it's like mashed potatoes, like mashed tarties, I've never tried that, and I don't know yet if I'll try it, just because for me the idea of putting milk in Irish potato and blending it together, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I've not been that brave yet. Yeah, but one day I will try it. So yeah, that's the end of today's video. A bit longer than I thought it would be, but yeah, that's those are like the biggest culture shocks I've experienced in the UK. Please, if you've gotten to this point, let us know what your experience was and just what you think about all the things that we've talked about today. As usual, please like, comment, share, and I'll see you next time on our next episode. Have a good week. Bye bye.